It's the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. If you don't know, now you know. If you ain't listening, why not? Boom.
This is the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by Scotty, Brian, and Mike, with the quick picks that'll make you the quick bucks. We're going to succinctly cover the quick picks that will make you money. All right, let's get into it. Mike, go ahead and start us off with some quarterback.
All right. After Tuesday night's game and just little time to prepare for this because they didn't put the pricing out till Tuesday night, I can't think of anyone else to go with but Ryan Tannehill. We saw what he did to the Bills defense. This isn't the same just run it down your throats offense as last season. They are airing the ball out almost at a 60-30 split between pass and run. Tannehill is been actually compared to Patrick Mahomes this season as playing better. So I'm willing to take a shot and ride that wave in a great matchup for him.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the pricing. I was like, how has he not gone up yet? I mean, he looked really good out there.
Yeah, I think they released the pricing during Tuesday night's game, so I don't think. I think if they would have done it right after the Tuesday game, he'd be sitting like at 6'4" or something. Nothing too crazy, but a little bit higher.
Yeah, I definitely like that game. I kind of, to go with my pick, kind of on the other side of that, I'm looking at some Deshaun Watson. No, I didn't see a point total on the game, but then I looked up another site, and I think it was sitting at 53.5. So it's a pretty decent point total. He had a great game last week after they had gotten rid of Bill O'Brien. He's always got a shot at getting some rushing yards and potentially stealing away a rushing touchdown. Kind of like you said, the Titans are airing it out, so it could be a potential shootout. Deshaun Watson has a bunch of healthy weapons right now in Fuller, Cooks, and Cobb. Tennessee will be going off of a short week of rest, so hoping that defense is struggling. And the only particular worry, which you kind of just covered, is that they might make it a running game, being that Houston, Texas has a really weak defense against the running game. But again, just like you said, after seeing Tannehill playing last week and they're airing out the ball, I don't think they're going to lean 100% on that run game. So they'll have to be making up some points if they're going to go up against the Titans.
Yeah, the only way I see that happen is if the Titans are up by 3 scores in the fourth quarter, and then they just ride Derrick Henry into the sunlight. But
they honestly didn't even use Derrick Henry that much. Well, not that they didn't use him, but they were also letting his backup in there a lot.
Yeah, they had the backup come in. They still gave him, I believe it was 19 touches.
Yeah, no, they still gave him good looks. Yeah. But they're also using that backup.
But definitely by watching that game, going back and seeing 19 touches, I was like, I did not think he got 19 touches in that game. But but if you look up to last season, they're also playing at an incredibly fast pace, and the Texans are as well. So that makes this game really attractive from a DFS standpoint, as long as both teams can keep it competitive.
Yeah.
And the more plays, the more points are available, in theory, at least.
All right, Scotty, give it a go.
All right, so I'm going to go with some Matthew Stafford this week going against Jacksonville. It's a 54.5 point total, which is the second highest on the Sunday slate, and I think it's the third highest overall. So it's definitely going to be a high-scoring game because neither team has any defense. Detroit is favored by 3, and Stafford is coming off of a bye week, which always helps quarterbacks out. And to add on to that, Jacksonville is ranked dead last against the pass in the DVOA rankings. So I really like him in this matchup this week.
I saw him and I totally was like, I know Scotty's going to choose him again. You're going to get him to hit one of these weeks. I mean,
it's got to be this week.
Yeah, hopefully.
I just hope Patricia doesn't just give Adrian Peterson the ball 25 times this game, and that because that's Patricia is already just ticked me off this season. With you have a prime game against tight ends, you've got a great tight end. Let's throw it to him 4 times, and we'll just let our rest of our offense handle the rest, and of course they lose the game.
Yeah, I always worry just because Stafford he has not seemed to get there, but if there was a position for him to get it, it would definitely be this week.
Yeah, the one thing of positive is the average depth of target has started to go back up these past few weeks with Kenny Galladay back on the field. It's just stuff like giving Adrian Peterson an absurd amount of touches for what he is at this point. At least if they were giving it to DeAndre Swift, you could kind of understand. Mm-hmm. But I'm weary of this from that standpoint. But Stafford definitely has the capability to put up that type of game if he's going to get the opportunity to.
Yeah, Jacksonville's all right against the run. I mean, they're definitely better against the run than they are against the pass. So, like you said, it really does feel like it's going to come down to play calling and whether or not they're going to let Stafford air it out. But the matchup's definitely there.
Yeah,
for sure.
The matchup can be there, but Patricia is stupid.
Right. All right, let's go on to some running back. So this one I think is a little bit different. I was looking at some Myles Gaskin. He's sitting at 5,400. I know it's not a super high point total of a game, but I mean, it's a perfect situation for him if Miami takes a big lead, kind of like they did last week against the 49ers, against one of possibly, if not the worst team in the league. I think they're going to have to run it. He's basically had 5 receptions every game. Jets are the 29th against the run. And with his current production and his price point, I'll need him to get a touchdown to be worth it. But he had his first touchdown of the season last week. And Fitz, I think he could be able to easily get a big lead there and just kind of let the running back take it away.
Yeah, I like Gaskin this week. I had him in my notes. But he can't do worse than Kenyon Drake last week. So against this team, and he's also been getting, I believe, or he's up there towards the top in weighted opportunity over the past 5 weeks. So he definitely could be a strong play this week in the vast land of running backs.
Yeah. All right, Scotty.
All right. So running back that I'm looking at this week, I'm actually liking some David Montgomery going against Carolina. It's a fairly low point total at 45. Carolina's favored by 1.5. But in the DVOA rankings, Carolina is 29th against the rush. And I think another big factor here is he's pretty much going to get the backfield to himself. Tariq Cohen is on IR as of the last game, and there's not really any other running backs on that roster that are too inspiring right now. I think the receivers have more backfield touches than the next 2 running backs on that roster. So he's not too expensive at 5,800. So I do like him in this matchup this week going against Carolina.
Plus, Foles hasn't been really throwing it much either. I mean, he's just basically been, a shot caller.
Yeah, I usually don't like David Montgomery, but this week I'll definitely be playing him.
Yeah, it's a good matchup, and like I said, he gets the backfield pretty much all to himself.
Yeah, opportunity is in his favor.
Right.
I guess I'll go with one I like. I'm going to go back to that Jacksonville-Detroit game and go with a little James Robinson at 6,800. After a letdown last week, he's still in a great opportunity with the backfield to himself. Mm-hmm. And Gardner Minshew is targeting the running back pretty heavily. And that's kind of been his MO throughout his whole career. I was listening somewhere today that even in college, he targeted his college running back, who I believe's name was James Williams, about 80 times in one season. That's pretty high for targeting running backs. And if he can get the receiving work and a good matchup against Detroit, he can definitely pay off that more expensive price tag.
Yeah, and another thing is because of 2 weeks in a row where it's been subpar, it might be pretty low ownership.
Yeah. I'm glad you said Robinson, because I didn't want to pick him 3 weeks in a row, but I do really like him this week.
Yeah, I saw him as well. Like, it was standing out like a sore thumb. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, it's a really good matchup for him. He should definitely be in a position to bounce back.
Well, you picked him twice, and he didn't do too well. And I'm going to pick him, and he's going to get hurt. So it'll
Okay, yeah.
The running back curse. We got to watch out. We'll see. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to a wide receiver. And Mike is going to go ahead and start us off with that.
I think I'll go with a salary saver this week. Looking over at Chicago, I'm going to go with Darnell Mooney at 3,000.
Whoa.
He's a wide receiver 2, priced below the wide receiver 3, who is Anthony Miller on the team. People still think of Anthony Miller as a wide receiver 2, but Darnell Mooney is out targeting him. He's the coaching staff is definitely trying to get him involved in the game plan, and he's been underperforming his opportunity. So you have a wide receiver in a potential blow-up spot against Carolina, priced all the way down at 3,000.
I did not even think of him, but I mean, anytime, even if he gets, double digits, like 10, I mean, you've got more than your value, what you're able to fill in there. So I will definitely keep that in mind.
They haven't touched his price at all.
Yeah,
it's been at 3,000 the whole season. It's so weird.
Yeah, and he's, not great weeks, but got a 12.6 and 9.9 for 3,000.
The targets are there.
Yeah.
It's because no one watches the Bears games.
True, yeah.
Even the people on DraftKings. All right. So, Scotty, your pick.
All right. So, I want to get a piece of the Green Bay-Tampa Bay matchup. I'm actually looking at some Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but it's a 55-point total. Green Bay favored by 1. Davante Adams is coming back from injury, so Scantling won't necessarily be in a wide receiver 1 role, but it doesn't seem like he's been doing too well in that role anyway. So he'll be able to kind of move back to the wide receiver 2 role. He's sitting at a really good price point in this matchup. He's only at 4,600, and I think a lot of people are going to be chasing points with their tight end going off for 3 touchdowns last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like this kind of under the radar receiver in a shootout matchup.
Yeah, and Valdes Scantling has proven in the past few years, or was it? He's played 3 years, or is it just 2 years?
I think this is year number 2 for him, right?
I think so. I remember that there was one, a handful of super big blow up games from him, so we know he's capable of it.
Yeah, I think Davante Adams coming back in is gonna kind of relieve some of the pressure from him.
Yeah,
free things
and then the rest
up.
of the receivers are all out with injuries.
Right.
But one that I want to go over is Will Fuller. I think that he's going to be overlooked because Cooks had that giant week last week. I know Will Fuller is a little bit expensive, but I expect him to be a little bit lower owned. And we've seen that he's got the speed and he's got the capability. So honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the receivers matched up with Deshaun Watson at this point. But I want to choose him just to kind of get that low ownership and hope that people are off of him, not expecting him to blow up.
I don't know how low owned he'll be, just because predominantly in the season he's been the number 1 option on the offense. And with the point total for that game being pretty high, I think he's solidified himself to have last week's performance not shake people off of him. He's not exactly, I mean, he still put up a goose egg 1 week this season, but he's not the same boom bust Will Fuller of seasons past, with him being the number one option and really guaranteed to get a fair amount of volume thrown his way.
Yeah. I mean,
with Hopkins
again, I think for me, for the most part in my lineups, I'm probably going to be stacking Deshaun Watson with any one of the three in quite a handful of lineups, just kind of sprinkling them throughout. But I hope that it is a little bit lower owned, even though, like you said, he might not be.
Oh yeah, I definitely like him as a play. I don't know if he's going to really get too low in ownership. He might be a little lower than last week.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Gotcha. Anybody want to cover another one?
I'll take one.
Go for it.
Go with a little Laviska Shenault.
Oh, that was in my notes too. I like it. Starting to think alike.
Yeah. Well, he's in a win-win situation whether Shark plays or Shark doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Shark does, he pretty much frees up space for Shenault. And if Shark doesn't, then Chenault's the number one option. And he's pretty much been increasing his workload each week. He was sitting at about, I think, 6 targets 2 weeks before this, and then I believe he jumped up to 8 last week. So he definitely seems to be trending in the right direction. Positive reports have come out of Jacksonville about him and wanting to get him more involved. I mean, he's sometimes goes back there and takes a snap at running back. He's just someone they want getting him involved in the game. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. He was in my notes as well. Kind of all the similar points. All right, so let's go on to tight end. We're going to go ahead and start off with Scotty.
Yeah, tight end, it feels like it's getting harder and harder to find any good plays there. So this week I'm actually going to just kind of go ahead and go with some Mark Andrews going against Philly. He is the most expensive tight end on the slate, and 6,500 is quite a bit. But the Philly passing defense just sucks against tight ends. I mean, they suck in general, but he's definitely in a great position to have a big game this week. And I mean, Philly's they're allowing third most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So yeah, I think the Ravens are going to have a field day on that defense.
It's a lot to pay up for a tight end. Yeah. All right, Mike, your pick.
I'm going to go with a little Irv Smith Jr. at 2,500. Last week could have just been a fluke game, but Irv Smith jumped from his usual 2 targets to 5. That's a pretty significant increase. He's been someone that dynasty players have been holding on to for a few seasons now, just hoping he'll break out. And it could just be one fluke game, or he could be on the verge of a breakout. They're going up against Atlanta, who's just demolished on defense. So it's a pretty good spot for someone who's priced at 2,500.
Yeah, I like it. You're finding some of these gems right here. I mean, you're finding a lot of lineup builders that can buy you a lot of extra money. So, and that's what I love to look for.
Just gotta find people to pay up for.
Yep. Very true. So one that I was looking at is Cameron Brate. Again, that's kind of like a shootout type of game. Cameron Brate sitting at 3,500. He was completely not utilized whatsoever because he had OJ Howard and Gronk in front of him. Right now, OJ Howard is out and Gronk is banged up. I know that they have Evans and Godwin in there, but they're a little bit banged up as well. And even with them in there, I mean, he went from basically no points to getting 6 targets last week. And it is kind of going to be a shootout type of game. I'm hoping that he just keeps that production up And, who knows, maybe one of those will be a touchdown. Brate has been on there for years now, so he knows the schemes and he knows how they play. So it's time that he gets a chance to work with the great Tom Brady.
Yeah, I was looking at Brate as well. My only concern with him is it looks like Godwin should be coming back into this game, so I'm wondering. I'm feeling like that's going to eat into his work a little bit. He is coming off of a 6-target game though.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if he's going to legitimately be a part of this offense, or if he was only part of the offense for that past week because everybody's been banged up.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I mean, it's a risk play, but I hope there's potential there.
With Godwin coming back, there'll be slightly less targets at the tight end, and Gronk and him could actually end up splitting the targets, and there really be nothing. It might end up coming down to who catches the touchdown.
Right.
Yeah, but for years and years, Brate's always been that guy that, would sneak in there and grab the touchdown.
Yeah, but even though it's not the same Gronk's been, he's kind of being deployed in that same way, at least starting out. They've worked him more in as the season's gone along. I guess what I'm seeing now is sort of two equivalent tight ends who aren't especially gifted at the position relative to other tight ends in the league, but we'll have to see how, with Godwin coming back, if one gets the majority of targets or if it's both of them end up with 2 or 3.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's worth taking some shots at. Not a ton, but at least some. But all right, so let's move on to defense, and I'll go ahead and start us off there. The defense that I'm going to be targeting is going to be the Miami Dolphins. They're sitting at a low total of 47.5 points. Jets are, as I mentioned before, one of the worst teams in the league. Miami is somehow still only priced at 2,900, which I kind of don't understand because I feel like it's a good situation. Plus, they've had 2 12-point weeks so far in the 5 weeks of play. So, I mean, I don't know many teams that have had double-digit weeks, let alone multiple double-digit weeks. So definitely think they're in a good spot. They've caused a lot of turnovers. Granted, they are against really bad teams. But the only thing that I do not like about them is I think that they will be very heavily owned. Yeah,
2,900, and them scoring well against San Francisco last week. There will be some high ownership, but if it's at 2,900, it might be worth it as a viable pay down option, and not really something you play for ownership, but just to get to your other plays.
Yeah.
I guess one I like this week, and this one might be a little less owned, is the Eagles defense versus Baltimore at 2,600. It might sound crazy, but the Eagles actually have a good defense altogether. And with their offense coming on a little bit more, it helps their defense for teams not to put 40 points up on them. And Lamar Jackson also hasn't really been himself so far this season. There's talk about him nursing a knee injury. He hasn't been doing hardly any designed runs, which is a big difference from last season. And they're trying to make him sit in the pocket and throw it, and that's really not Lamar's game.
Yeah.
So this sets things up for possible turnovers, and priced down at 2,600, it's not costing you much.
I don't know if you can persuade me on that one, but if we pull it off, I will say I was wrong.
The injuries are just stacking up for the Eagles, though, on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I just don't see it.
I still think they've got a decent pass rush, and they can
Maybe if it was against another team, but the Ravens.
Well, I mean, Lamar Jackson's not that great a passer. He's stepped his game up from the end of his rookie season into his sophomore season, but he's still a below average passer for this league.
Yeah, but that's still a hard no from me.
Okay.
Scotty, you want to cover yours?
So I made the mistake of picking the Dolphins too, and I should have known better. And that's the only one I have notes on.
All right. No worries. I mean, it's a good pick.
I guess if I had to mention one, I do like the Vikings at that low price point, just with all the dysfunction going on with the Falcons right now. But I that's the only other one I can really think of right now.
Yeah, I could see that.
Save some money.
Yeah, definitely. That's a pay down spot.
I think what depends on that will be just how healthy Atlanta's receivers are. I mean, even though Atlanta is in complete dysfunction, I think Minnesota is the worst or one of the worst ranked teams against the pass. And if you've got Julio Jones out there, I don't know if he's going to play this week, but if Ridley's healthier than he has been in the past couple of weeks, it might not quite go the best way.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the sneaky pick of the week. And Mike, you're going to go ahead and start us off.
My sneaky pick of the week is going to go with some Leonard Fournette. I think I've done him once before this season as a sneaky pick.
But didn't you kill it that week? I think that was the week that he put up 30 points.
It was either that week or I think it was a week after.
Oh.
But he was still sneaky because people don't like Leonard Fournette. Yeah.
I really thought it was the week that he blew up because I remember it genuinely looked like a sneaky pick.
I don't know, because my spiel on Leonard Fournette that week was, I know we got on Brian for picking Darius Slayton after he blew up, but here's where my situation's different.
Gotcha.
But anyways, on to Leonard Fournette this week. Packers are a run funnel defense, but Tampa Bay is going to have to pass in this game. And while Ronald Jones has compiled up some stat lines over the past couple weeks, he has not been getting it done with the targets Tom Brady has been giving him. And Tom Brady targets the running back more than any other quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
So if Fournette is healthier than he was last week and is not being activated for just an emergency situation, then he is really the one who should benefit from Tom Brady's passes. There is a little hesitation with Keyshawn Vaughn working in there, but Leonard Fournette is the best back on this roster, and he should ascend to the top. If he does it this week, he's going to do it with low ownership and provide you nice leverage on the field.
Yeah. Well, the one that I went with is kind of like a similar style to what I talked about earlier about one of my wide receivers. Looking at some Randall Cobb. Again, I just feel like this whole offense is going to be eating. There's going to be targets. There's going to be yardage out there. I really like some Deshaun Watson, and I think that could kind of cheapen the load of a stack there, sitting at 4,400 matched with Deshaun Watson. So you're paying up for Watson, but also able to pay down with Cobb. Again, I don't think any of these three receivers could be really a bad pick, but I think that Randall Cobb could be kind of a sneaky pick because he's going to be overshadowed by the other two receivers.
Yeah, he'll be lower end than the other two. I don't know if he quite reaches sneaky, but he'll be borderline.
Yeah. Scotty?
So this, again, I don't know if this one will be really that sneaky, but a player I was looking at was some Damian Harris going against Denver. It's definitely a game that people might not look at as much just because it is a pretty low point total at 45, but New England is favored by 10 points, and Harris is kind of emerging as the number one running back, or at least the number one rusher, I should say, for this New England team.
All running backs.
Because I mean, White's still getting a lot of like targets and a lot of work outside of the backfield, but Harris is coming off a 100-yard game against Kansas City, in a game where they got beat pretty badly. So I think he's trending in the right way. He's coming off of a bye week, and he's going into a matchup with a game script that should favor a lot of work for him.
And they should have Cam back too, so that could kind of disguise the run a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with Cam back, because you have to wonder about Harris's workload in that game. Had they had Cam, would they be handing the ball off 17 times? But he definitely was favored in camp. I had him in my notes as well. That I would say that's the only risk with him, but because there is that risk, that is going to make him sneaky.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not always fun to look at last week and see what you got wrong, but it is fun to look at last week and see what you got right. So I'll start us off here. My picks were kind of 50-50 last week. My sneaky pick killed it. The only problem with my sneaky pick, Chase Edmonds, was that there wasn't a whole bunch of people you really had to pay up for last week. Asides, the winning Millie Maker lineup was a Patrick Mahomes stack, and there were definitely better values as far as, just points per dollar at the quarterback position. Mahomes still got the most points, so there just weren't a lot of receivers and running backs you had to pay up for. I mean, the two running backs in the winning Millie Maker lineup were Devontae Freeman and Todd Gurley. So it's like 5 years ago. But Chase Edmonds, he did it on efficiency, and I'm going to keep playing him over these next few weeks, because at some point the Cardinals have to realize that the guy who comes out there and busts off a 29-yard run for a touchdown is better than the guy who can barely get 60 yards on 17 carries against the Jets. So I'm hoping logic will prevail, but Chase Edmonds can still get it done on a limited opportunity, and that's what he did last week.
Gotcha. Well, I'm going to take a massive L for last week, deciding to finally go along with Cincinnati, and they put up a whole whopping 3 points. So I'm going to take a big L right there. I had a handful of decent picks. I mean, Robbie Anderson did decent, and then Todd Gurley put up some good numbers. But yeah, overall, last week, scratch for me.
Yeah, I'm mad at you, Brian. Because you bringing it in there made me want to believe in Joe Burrow again. And I was getting down to my final stacks last week, preparing for the slate, and I was like, Ryan Fitzpatrick or Joe Burrow? Yeah. Ryan Fitzpatrick or Joe Burrow? And I went Joe Burrow. And that was 50 lineups gone. Thank you, Brian.
Oh my God.
Massive L.
I'm just messing.
Scotty?
All right. So I messed up on quarterback and running back last week. Daniel Jones. That game went for over 70 points, and Daniel Jones had none of it. I don't know how the hell that happened. So I had the right idea. I guess I don't know. I don't know what happened.
Chose the wrong pieces somehow.
Running back, James Robinson didn't really do much. I did nail wide receiver though. I did pick Brandon Cooks. He went off for over 30 points. Tight end. Jonnu Smith wasn't on the slate. He did go off for 21 points. He had a pretty good game against the Bills. And the Colts did okay. I think they got 12 points against the Browns.
Yeah, I took 12 points for a defense.
And then my sneaky pick, Eric Ebron. That didn't really do too much against Philly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's time for our gut check.
Ooh, gut check!
And I will go ahead and start us off. And what I'm going to start off right away is what I've been all over so far, some Deshaun Watson. And I'm going to pair him up with some Will Fuller. And let's see here. Let's look at some running backs. I do really like the James Robinson pick, although I'm already paying a lot. I'm going to go with him. But in order to save some money, I really liked where Mike's head was at on some Mooney. So I'm going to go with a $3,000 player there with Mooney. So that's going to save me some money. And then I really like that Miami defense. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. And tight end. I'm going to just kind of go down with some of my picks that I already was talking about. So let me go with that Cameron Brate. I'm looking like I've got a good little bit of money here. Got about 6,600 left per player with flex, running back, and wide receiver. And let's see who I like here. I kind of wanted to ask you guys this as a talking point. Do you think there will be a repeat of Chase Claypool?
Not 4 touchdowns.
That was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, he is like the best receiver on the team at the moment right now.
Yeah, but to put it into context, this was his breakout game, and the defense probably wasn't quite accounting for him. So I don't.
Yeah, like a wide receiver 3.
I don't.
Quickly became like wide receiver.
I don't think he's going to do horrible. I don't think we're going to. Yeah, I don't think we're going to see too many big blow up games. And since he had such a huge game, I just don't think he's going to be worth it if he does hit. Unless he hits huge like that and becomes the chalk.
Yeah. Well, let me go with some Chenault. And I've got running back and flex left. So for running back, let me go with some Mike Davis. He's been pretty solid. I kind of wonder what situation they're going to be in once McCaffrey comes back. And then to top it all off, I'm going to leave some money on the table and let me go with some Thielen.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead with my lineup here. I'm going to start off with some Tannehill, and then I'm going to make the unpopular move of stacking him with his running back Derrick Henry, which usually isn't the type of running back you stack with a quarterback, but because they're getting so many plays off a game, and Derrick Henry has been running more routes this season per game, there's still some reception potential, and enough plays could happen, especially with Houston going at a fast pace as well, to where we could see 35 attempts from Tannehill and still 20 plus attempts from Derrick Henry. And then I'm going to go AJ Brown, and I'll bring it back with some Will Fuller. Tight end, I'm going to go with some Irv Smith, and then I'll go with some Robinson, or James Robinson, not Allen.
Gotcha. I was confused for a minute there.
Sorry about that. And then flex, I'll go Damian Harris, And I'm going to go down to my Eagles defense.
Woo! Fly, Eagles, fly.
I'm going to switch out Fuller and move down to Cooks. Now I'm where I'm going to be, but I'm going to be way under salary.
Not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not that bad a thing. I don't know with all... I'm 1,300 under right now, which is a little much for my liking with that many, with no games being canceled. I'll move up from Damian Harris, and I'll go with a little Jamison Crowder, and that'll put me at 200 under.
All right, so that's going to conclude the Week 6 edition of the BSDFS Fantasy Football Podcast. We appreciate everybody tuning in and checking us out. Hopefully you can take these picks, go out there, and win you some money. That's going to do it for us this week. Peace.